Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us for our first museum and BHI live stream. We did have a test about a month ago, very briefly. So this is about repeating watches, some minute repeating and some other repeating. And we hope to have a bit of fun, and we're going to also do a repair on a modern wristwatch repeater. So if you've got any questions, just write them in the chat. And we've got Richard, who's hiding behind his screen there. No, you're just about. And we've also got James Wellborn in the back of the workshop. We've got Jim Arnfield, who's helped set all of this up. Actually, he's not helped set all of this up. He's set all of this up. He's got the hardware. He's got the software. So thanks very much, Jim, for that. And we've got the conservation group of the Museum of Timekeeping with us today. And so different people are doing different little jobs, and a lot of people have helped to kind of set all this up today. And we've got an amazing collection of watches to look at. Most of them earmarked actually for donation to the museum, but mostly the property of one collector. So we'll have a look at some really rare and exciting antique repeaters. And yeah, I reckon we'll probably go on for about an hour, or maybe a bit less. Who knows? We'll just see how it goes. And we've got a different camera angle as well, so we'll be able to see if we switch views there. That's the first sight here of one of the very early repeating watches. So this is a watch by Daniel Quare, and what I'm going to do is just put on some finger protection, because although these watches are not cleaned recently and a bit dusty in some cases, I wouldn't want to leave any additional finger marks. So I'm just going off air for a second, just a technical note. I've just been informed that the audio level is very low, so I'm just raising the gain on this device. And I'm sure somebody will give me the thumbs up or not to let me know how it sounds. Okay, I just had a thumbs up from another side of the building that the audio is good now. Right, so what I was saying was I was just going to put some finger cots on just to prevent any contamination when I handle these watches. So I'll switch camera view again now. So what we have here is the earliest of these watches in the collection, and this is the repeating watch by Daniel Quare, who really is considered to have invented repeating work. There was Reverend Barlow earlier than that, but he's wasn't truly repeating. It was more releasing the kind of strike work, which uses the same energy source, whereas repeating work, the act of starting the repeating is what winds a little mainspring, and that's what drives the whole mechanism. So one of the interesting things that Jim Arnfield told me is that he's examined many scores or even hundreds of repeating watches in his life, and he's convinced that no two were ever the same in antique work. And it's thought and considered that repeating work is the most difficult of all complications to get right, because not only do you have the technical aspects, you also have the kind of artistic aspect of how does the sound to the observer, if you like. I just want to check on something. There's a bit of echo. I'll just put the microphone off. And so if there's any particular part of these watches that anyone would like to see, just mention in the chat. So because this, I'll just turn this around as well, because the normal side of the movement is also absolutely beautiful. Look at that, signed Quare, London, Daniel Quare. All the beautiful pierced foliate balance cock. It's got a little pink ruby there, which I'm not sure if that's original. And it looks fairly early. Just looking at that end stone in the balance, it may be original. A lot of these early watches had a diamond, a very thin sliver of diamond, kind of faceted a bit, but not, like a gem quality, because it's very flat. And what we see here on the edge, now there's a bit of shadow. I'm just going to switch views on my laptop so I can see what you're seeing. Yes, it's a bit, the exposure's a bit weird now, but I just wanted to show the train of wheels. So what we have, this is reversed on my screen. Oh yes, in fact it's upside down. Right, might just change the lighting somewhat. Yes. So what we have is the barrel beautifully engraved on the surface there. So when the repeat work is charged, a small mainspring barrel, there's a mainspring in there that is wound, and then when it's released, this entire train of wheels runs, and there's normally some sort of governor at the end of the train, or there's always some sort of governor. In modern watches, it's a fairly sophisticated kind of centrifugal brake, and in other cases, you have an adjustment of a kind of imperfect wheel and pinion depthing, which by making the depthing shallower or deeper, you can adjust the speed of engagement between those wheels and adjust the speed of running. And then you also, in some cases, have a kind of crude escapement that buzzes back and forth in some of the later devices. And so that's normally quite noisy, and so that's usually a thing as well. Especially in modern repeaters, they try to keep the whirring train very quiet, because it can actually be louder than the bells or the gongs themselves. Now, with this particular watch, it's very difficult to energize it because it's out of the case, and these early watches had a kind of push piece. And so I can show you a much later watch. I'll just move this out of the way briefly. And so here we have a watch belonging to another collector, and that is thought to be by Yappi, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, Yappi Frez, who made this sort of thing, but actually the watch is signed Breguet. Sorry, now I'm holding it upside down. It's signed Breguet, but it's definitely not a Breguet watch. And if I energize it now, so this is a quarter repeater. You can see the bell is very sonorous there, but you can still hear the kind of whirring sound of the wheel train spinning very quickly. I'll do it again. So maybe just a few words about the different types of repeater. So there we heard a number of strokes for the hour, and then we heard a ting-tang kind of sound. And so that's a quarter repeater. So it tells you how many hours have passed, and the nearest quarter that's just elapsed. So that will sound the same all the way down to just at the end of 29 minutes past, and then the minute it hits 30 minutes past or half past, there will be a double ting-tang. So ting-tang, ting-tang. And we can do that. So if I open the front of the watch, we have a key here. That's the wrong side. Two different sizes. So we'll advance it, and in fact you may be able to, we'll just bring the other mic closer. Oh, I've already gone past it now. So now we should have 3/4. So that was 3/4. I'll just go off air for a second. We just had a report, thanks, from Australia that the audio is mono, but it's only coming out of one speaker. But we could, in theory, we could set up the system differently so that the mono, is duplicated in each channel. But I'm not gonna. We don't have the capacity to try and play with that now. I think for the next stream we'll deal with that. But sorry if you're only getting everything in one ear roll. Make sure it's your good ear roll, and then you'll be able to hear us. Or maybe if we bore you, then put it in the bad ear roll. So anyway, that's the quarter repeater, and that's the kind of I'm reluctant to say basic repeater because none of this is basic in any way whatsoever, but that is what the kind of starting point is, the quarter repeater. I've never heard of just an hour repeat. No, Jim's shaking his head. We've never heard of such a thing as just the hours. So after quarter, most people think then of the minute repeater, where it sounds out 1 to 14 minutes within that quarter, but actually there's a couple of other types of repeat. And the Quare watch we looked at earlier was quarter repeat, and then there's a 7.5 minute repeater, which I don't think we've got on display here. The half quarter, yeah. Do we have a half quarter? No, I thought not. So there's a half quarter repeat, which is every 7.5 minutes. It's got an extra indication, so you know how far past the quarter hour you've gone. You've either within the first half of it or the second half of it. So that's the half quarter repeater. Then you also get 5 minute repeaters, which are self-explanatory. So you're going to have 12 possibilities around the dial. And then you also have 10 minute repeaters, I've heard of. Oh, okay. Yeah. But the commonest one, even though it's the most expensive to make, especially in more modern times, you'll find is the minute repeater. So we've been admiring this, and what I was going to say was that the pump action on these antique watches is what drives the repeat work. Actually, I should put this off during this shot. So it's the pump action that drives the repeat work, whereas in a modern wristwatch you've got, and I'll show you this, we have a slide in the case band, so this would be driven down, and in fact I'll play this later. So you've got the pump action and the slide action, and in antique watches, proper antique watches from the 17th century, the 1600s, the 1700s, mostly they are independent, where you depress the little pendant in the watch case and that activates it. So that's the Quare. But what I did want to show you with the Quare is how the wheel train just runs, but I can't activate it fully because I don't have the little pendant to push, but I can push the piece halfway. And then this also illustrates another feature, because a lot of safety mechanisms had to be developed quite quickly, even with Quare's watches, his earliest ones. If you didn't push the piece down all the way, so if you did not depress this all the way home, then you'd get the wrong number of hours being struck. However, they very quickly sort of sorted that out using safety mechanisms, that unless you push this all the way in, it just wouldn't work at all. So if I press this only halfway in, oh, come on, Mr. Jappi, you could do better than that. I will demonstrate it with a different watch. So here we have a watch that Jim Arnfield bought, and he made this acrylic case 60 years ago, is how long this acrylic case has been in existence. I'm going to use a knife because although I can do it with my fingers, with these finger cots on, I've lost a little bit of touch. And so here we have a little push piece, and so if we press it all the way, now the sound on this one is a bit muted because it's in an acrylic case, and I think that's deadening the sound a bit. But I think the point that illustrates is that by pushing the piece all the way, it works. But what if I push it only part of the way? So the train rewinds, you can hear all that whizzing, which is the train resetting itself, the little mainspring barrel unwinding, putting all the work back in its neutral position, but nothing sounded. And that's the safety action. So there's a device in all repeaters made even fairly soon after the earliest ones, which have a mechanism called an all or nothing piece. And the all or nothing piece is exactly what it sounds like. If you don't push it all the way, you get nothing. So here we have a very clear, this little hook here, which latches. These are the kind of integrated racks. These little teeth pull the hammer tails. So I do it with this one. So that's one of the little hammer tails that is pulled by, you see there are 3 teeth there, one for each tone, the high tone and the low tone. But this entire thing cannot move unless it's released by this little hook here called the all or nothing piece. So unless you were to depress the plunger all the way down, which I'll just do now, I'll just do it halfway. So it winds the spring on the right there. You can see that spring just turning on that little snail. But I won't push it all the way. See, nothing kind of happened. But when I do push it all the way, watch what happens. I'm looking at everything upside down. Watch what happens to that little hook. It floats out of the way, allowing this rack to fall. So I'll do that now. See? So the little hook moved out of the way. And now the racks can raise up, and in so doing they pull the hammer tails round. So that's it. So that's the all or nothing piece. So that's how we stop repeaters sounding the wrong hour or the wrong time at any rate.
We've got a technical question when you're ready, Justin.
I'm ready.
Right. We've been asked to show. Can you show what the spring of a pump action repeater looks like as opposed to the slide? Or is there any difference?
So we've been asked a technical question about the springs. I think most repeaters, as far as I know, just have a tiny little mainspring barrel somewhere connected to the slide device, and it's wound up by you either sliding the slide or pushing the pump. Now, in some early watches, there was actually like a kind of little fusee chain arrangement that pulled it around. And I think if we look at this, George Graham watch, I think this one has that. Sorry, I just need to reset the innards here. So this isn't the original case to the watch. This is a turtle shell case. And in this instance, you can see that the connection between the pump. Now, I'm just going to go ahead first. Are we? Yes, we're live on that screen. So this piece here is what's depressed by the little plunger, and so that would be pushed towards the center of the watch. But you can see at the nose of it, there's a little fusee chain wrapped around that disc there, and in this instance, I'm just going to get my bearings. So that's a kind of pulley that changes the direction of the little chain, and then the barrel is underneath this arrangement here. And so if we were to pump this piece would come down, it would pull the chain up there and drive this whole thing anti-clockwise, and that's what would wind inside this very, very delicate little barrel here. You see that? That's the mainspring barrel for the repeat. So that's the repeat barrel with a spring inside it. And so quite light really, but it's sort of indirectly driven in that sense. But if we look at the Quare, I think that the barrel in this one is directly wound. Let's just see where we are. So in this case, this is the push piece that would be driven downwards. I'll try and do that in a minute. And then the barrel there. Oh no, this also has a fusee chain. This one also has a chain drive, so you can just about see the light. Bring the light around a bit. Sorry, because my view is reversed. Okay, so you can just about see there the couple of links in the chain, but that pulls the barrel directly, so it doesn't go around a long pulley as in the other watch we looked at. And then directly beneath it you can see the little barrel. So that's the barrel there. So you see that's a taller spring than in the Graham watch. Now this one, I was playing with it earlier, and Jim did say that you have to use a tool to press the plunger. So I use the back of my bronze tweezers here so as to not mark anything, but I can't get it deep enough, and I don't want to risk slipping. So if I just push that, oh no, I got it to activate. But oh, maybe not. It's also a bit gummy. It was running earlier, but it's yeah, there we go. Don't forget, this doesn't have any gongs or bells, and actually the earliest repeaters had bells, so they actually had very tiny bells inside the watch case. So you see, because the watch needs a good service, it's very dusty, it's not running that freely. But that's the train there. So if we go to a more modern repeater, so we'll move to the newest of the antique ones, if you like. Here you have a more direct action, and so this is late 1800s. So late Victorian period, but a Swiss watch. And just try and find the little slide piece. So in this case we've got a slide that comes out of the case just there. So that is what engages with the slide piece in the outside of the case band. So this would be just wound along. So I'll do that in a moment. And what that does is it's connected to this steel plate that's got these teeth cut into the outer edge, and that's then what winds the barrel. So that winds the little barrel directly, and so I'll just pull that round, try and keep my naked finger away. So you see, so that wound the barrel directly there. So that's a much more direct action. So you've got a rack and pinion almost, a curved rack that winds the barrel, and then that feeds this little centrifugal governor further down the train. I'll just do that again and turn it around, because the gongs on this are quite good. So earlier we used a big wooden box. I'll just see how this little Bergeron box works as a sounding board. So I don't know if that audio comes through on the system. But so the other thing is, obviously all the pace of the repeat is always adjustable by the methods we spoke about earlier. And in fact, my personal preference is to have the pace slightly slower than what this is playing. But none of these watches have been serviced lately, so you don't get, it's not at its optimum setting at the moment. So if we just go through, again, just a quick overview, we've got the very earliest one here, which is probably early 1700s, because Quare invented the system in the late 1680s. And this was, according to Jim, a much more sophisticated version, or an advanced version of his work. So that's the Daniel Quare. I meant to ask, Jim if he thought that this pink jewel was original, or if we think that maybe that's a later end stone. Okay, so I was just checking with Jim if he thought that this ruby was possibly a later thing, because my feeling would be that a lot of early watches would have had a diamond. It's very hard to tell, but probably in a watch of this era we would have had a diamond end stone. And if you look at the George Graham, that has a diamond. So there we see a beautiful little the diamond end stone. I'll just try and keep it in focus. It's actually hard to capture just there. And this case, although the case is a replacement, it does illustrate the point about how the early repeaters had a bell. So this isn't a proper bell, this is soldered together. Whereas, proper ones would have had a cast bell that was this shape, very thin, and covered the whole movement. And so there you can see, that is practically the bell in this watch case, although it's not original to Graham. But you can see how different it is. And much later, they came up with the gongs, which are the long kind of hardened steel wire gongs that encircle the movement. Some people say that was Breguet. Very hard to tell, really, with some of these inventions. And so, again, absolutely first quality London work, the finest watches available anywhere at the time, and for a very, very long time, nothing surpassed it. This Yappy watch, or Jappy, is fun because it also purports to be a Breguet, just to compare the quality of these things. And a lot of these watchers and makers at that time were trying to emulate English work. But this is asserting that it is a Breguet, although it is definitely not a Breguet. So we just open the cuvette. I thought I'd release that little bolt. And so that's a continental piece, and so you can see how different in style the style of continental watch was to the English work. They're not quite contemporaneous, but they're close enough that English work didn't change for hundreds of years much in aesthetics. So very different styles, and that's signed Breguet, but it's not Breguet. So we're looking then. Are there any other questions at the moment?
Not at the moment.
Okay. So we come now to the modern watch, or the contemporary watch in question. I'll just clear the bench a bit. I'll get that out of the way. Right. So let's move these safely out of the way. Right, so what we have today is this beautiful IWC Minute Repeater. And so this uses similar principles, but the whole system of minute repeating has been revised and rethought. And it was, the minute repeating work was made to be able to attach to a much more standard caliber, even though the caliber in this watch is special. It's not exclusively a minute repeating caliber, and the design of it was done by Renaud Papy, and actually I didn't have the still image to hand, although maybe I might be able to get the still image up, just showing a general drawing of that. So if you just give me a second now, I think I have it, yes. So there was a way. Oh, you see, if I put it onto this channel. Aha. So there we have. Can you see my mouse moving on screen, Richard?
No.
No. Okay. So, but there you can see it's an entirely different.
Oh, yes, your mouse is moving now. Yes.
Oh, okay, because there's a slight lag.
Just a delay.
A slight delay. Okay, so you can see here that the whole thing's been turned on its head. So in a minute repeater, And actually, I'll just go back to the Graham for a second. You can see, oh no, the Graham, oh no, we're missing something there. Oh yes, so one of the Swiss ones, where you can see that the four-lobed star, which also has 14 little steps on each one. So I'll just switch view. So in the classic repeater, you've got, I'll just put the light back on. How are we doing for time? How long have we been spending?
We have been running about 5 minutes.
Okay, so we need to crack on. And so what we got there is the star. Is exposure all right there, Richard, on this?
Yeah.
Okay. You've got the star with 4 arms, and each arm has 14 steps on it. So you can imagine that's a very complex piece to cut. And so you've got, say, the first quarter, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes past. The second quarter the same, the third quarter the same. So it's a fairly complex thing, and a lot of repetitive kind of engineering there to create these pieces. But the IWC, if we switch back to that view, has kind of re-envisioned that. So rather than having 4 pieces with 15 teeth, it's just got 1, and that touches a piece that's much more simplified. So we believe that that is the sensing cam, if you like how far does that fall, will determine how many blows are struck. There we've got the all or nothing piece again, so unless this is the slide in the side of the case, so when that's slid round it releases everything, and then the all or nothing piece is knocked out of the way, allowing the rack to fall. So anyway, it's a completely different setup, and also you've seen in all the other work, most of the pieces are pivoted from one side, whereas in the IWC a lot of them are pivoted from 2 sides. So in the real watch under the dial there's bridges over much of this, although you can see some of it. Just here you can see part of the centrifugal brake, and so these kind of orange slice looking things are pivoted there where the screw is, or near the screw, and they tend to fling outwards when they spin fast, and then these little discs actually run inside a ring that's not shown here and rub, and so the faster it spins the harder they rub, and so it tends to stabilize the pace of the striking. So what we have now is a most unusual problem with this IWC, and that is that when it was last serviced, they didn't put the hands on in the right position, and so when we cause the device to sound, it doesn't match up to what's shown on the hands. I'll just move these watches to safety here. Sorry, Jim. I'm going to put a nice sounding board on the bench. Oh dear. Okay, never mind. We'll get there. Okay, so we might have to just play with a setting, and actually, so this will be a bit out of focus. Just do that again so you can see what we're up to here. So we've got the watch on this Site's dueling toolbox and the microphone. And so what the movement thinks it is 3 minutes past 12. Actually, the pace of that repeat is beautiful, just nice and serene. Actually, we'd worked quite hard to try and keep it exactly on 12 o'clock, but we've nudged it. So when I reset the hands, I will try and reset them to 3 minutes past 12, which will be a bit of a challenge with our hand particularly, but thinking if we should go back and then forward.
Oh, really?
No, just leave it. Yeah.
What you said will work.
Yeah. I just put the hour hand on.
Yeah, and
Just a midges, which is a technical expression. All right. Okay, so what we have now, so what we'll do is remove the bezel and then remove the hands and reset it to what the sound was. So I'm looking at the wrong camera. We reset it to what the sound was, which is 3 minutes past 12, and at the moment it is showing kind of something like 10 to 2 or whatever. So obviously when the watch had its hands fitted, it wasn't really done very, very carefully or with much thought. And so we're going to try and mend that. And that's as it came from a vendor. So this is a vintage watch, just to be clear. This watch came from the early 2000s. And only 250 pieces were made. And so beautiful. And if you look at the movement, absolutely beautiful, slender manual wind movement. And I was doing a bit of reading about this. It is not a vintage caliber, but it was made to emulate a caliber from the 1930s, of which we have another example here. So that was a caliber 95, and so this caliber is the caliber 95290. So it's a contemporary remake of the caliber 95. Now this particular one is a caliber 97, so I'm sure there's some technical slight difference, perhaps the train count or the beat or something like that. Shock protection. Okay, so so subtle differences, but basically this is it would be the same base caliber 95, and so you can see there how the 1930s caliber and the contemporary one match, and it's a lovely slim watch. So this is a very slim kind of dress watch from that era, and so this is the same dimensions, except it's also got the repeat work applied under the dial. As we said, it was almost like a module. I'm not sure if it's technically a module version. I think it is. Jim's nodding. So it makes the overall watch case a bit thicker, and the contemporary taste is for thicker watches. So the next thing to do, I'm just going to close this up because it worries me a bit being open there. There's graining on this case back, so I'll try and line up the graining. And the little knife notch is at 11 o'clock. Okay, so in this instance, the little knife slot is just at the slide, but I don't want to push the crown in because we want to keep the watch frozen in this time. So I will try with this sheet of plastic just to try to protect the watch. Sorry if my fingers are in the way of the view, probably just for a few moments. So there we have the watch without the dial. How's our exposure, everyone? Is it all right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so now the sort of more challenging part to me is to try and remove the hands, A, without damaging anything, and also without moving them, because we don't want to move them off that 3 minutes past. And we also don't exactly know now if we're at the start of the 3 minutes or the end of the 3 minutes, so it'll be a small amount of trial and error. So what I've got is this sheet of paper which we've pre-cut. The reason we're using paper is because it adds a little bit of friction for the levers, because the last thing we want to do is accidentally slide slightly and move the cannon pinion, because that'll make our job of repositioning these much harder. So what I'm going to try and do is lift the minute hand independently first, if at all possible, because I don't like metal jangling on metal, and sometimes when you lift both hands at the same time, they can touch each other. Now, it may not be possible, but I'm going to try. So my thumb is a bit in the way. No rush. So that I got a dust cover here, and so we're going to keep these under a cheese dome. Thank you. So I've got non-marking tweezers here, and these are boxwood tip tweezers, and the idea is not to touch the visible surfaces, so we want to only touch the sides of any part. If at all possible, to avoid touching hands across their top and bottom, only from the sides. Okay, so we're going for the hour hand next, and for that I might use a slightly different process. We'll see. Well, maybe the levers will work.
The moment we're seeing your face, Justin, are you able to...
Yeah. How's that?
Yeah, well, just wondering if the overhead... Oh, there we are. Yes, it's just a delay, sorry.
And so I will just touch on some of the tools here in a moment, but I've elected to use these wide a lever as possible that will also fit into the space, because the wider the lever, the less kind of force per unit area, what is that, pressure, we have on the dial. So in other words, the load of lifting the hand is distributed over a wider area, and I've got to be mindful of the seconds dial and the seconds hand behind all of this. I think I'm clear of them there. Okay, that's free. I didn't breathe during all of that. That's the other thing. We don't really want the hand to drag across the dial either, if we can avoid it. So, to my philosophy, the dial and hands are almost the most precious part of any watch, because a screw, a movement component you can replace, you can refinish. It's almost impossible to do anything with a damaged dial or hands. Right, so that's that. So I always worry about removing and replacing hands on a watch because they're the one thing that everyone sees. I'm just going to sound the device again. So we're still on 3 minutes past. Right, next thing I need to do is sort out my hand replacing tools. So there are lots of different ways to replace hands, but sometimes I think they're very sophisticated ways, like a kind of press. I don't know, when you have to finesse the position of the hand, sometimes it's as well just to do it directly with tweezers and a little pusher, which is what I'm going to try and do here now. Okay, so we've got to try and get the hour hand on at just a midges over 12. But before I do that, I'm just going to check which pusher to use. So I've got these Bergeron pushers, and infuriatingly, there's no rhyme or reason to the colors. You just have to try and remember which one is which. They've got different size tips. Yes, I think the grey one will do for the hour hand. I'll just dab it in Rodico just to make sure dust is kept at bay. So we're going to use the grey. And we'll go in for the hour hand. Yes.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I just need to nudge it, as you say, forward by about a quarter of that space. So there are instances where we might want to support the rear pivot, but I think that probably just by the feel of the removal force, I'll be able to drive it on directly. There's absolutely no sight like your own eyes to see how beautiful things are. No camera. I'm just looking along the surface of this dial. It's so beautiful and like pearlescent. So you hopefully be able to see there that the minute hand is driven all the way onto the hour pipe. Okay. Next. Sorry, did I say minute hand? I meant hour hand. Right, next we'll choose a different pusher. And I think maybe the black one. Maybe the black. Or the red. I'll try with the red. That's the Courtauld bell striking. Beautiful, rich, heavy bell. Right, so we need to advance this by about 3 minutes. The trick is to just get it on enough to bite just a bit, but without moving the cannon pinion when we do so. So I'll move it 1 minute and just see what it sounds like. So we're going to let it run to 4 minutes past now, just see how close we are. But I want to just level up the hand. Level out the hand a bit. So I'm just pressing on the boss, but biasing it back away, which just raises the tip of the hand ever so slightly. Right. So we'll push the crown in now to release the stop seconds device, and there we see it takes off. Seconds hand is moving. So, is everyone still there with us, awake?
Yeah.
We're about halfway past. I might just stop it now, because we're not quite at 4 yet, we'll see. And I hope and pray we haven't hit 4 within the thing's brain. Getting closer. Do you say stop just before 4? Or just after?
Yes. Well, actually, I didn't quite see what you were setting it to then.
Okay, it's about 5 seconds to now, 3 seconds to.
Make sure it gets in the next second at the right moment.
Okay, well
2 or 3 seconds.
we are about, say, 6 seconds away from that on the current minute setting. Obviously, they don't synchronize the seconds necessarily. I'll keep that in line with the camera so we don't have any parallax. Okay.
Just over the other side.
Okay, so now it is, I would say, about just a few seconds after the middle of that dot. Ignore what the seconds hand does, because you can set the hour and minutes independently of the seconds hand itself, but what we're looking at is how far over the dot is the minute hand. Let's hope it's at 4. I really did not know if we were going to get even as close as that.
Yes.
I think.
Yes. Quit while you're ahead.
Quit while you're ahead. I think that's a pass. I mean, I have to say, oh, my tea's gone cold. I mean, I did all this without the power of tea. I think I deserve a gulp of tea. My goodness. Well, of course, the Swiss would not tolerate, and actually, no one should tolerate tea on the workbench around these rare watches. But you know. Right. So now is the time to drive it fully home. I'm going to use the other tip just to get it nicely home. So he's just getting some feedback on the audio. Right,
yeah,
so
James just talking to them about it. Yeah.
all right. Well, weirdly, I've gone quiet over the last few seconds, so he wouldn't have been able to hear it there. But we did get. So I'm going to drive it round to 5 past. So just before 5 past now.
You didn't hear it, but you got a bit of a cheer when it hit.
Oh, really cool.
Yes, we were all emphasising.
Yes. Ooh. I can keep this fellowship. I thought I might have to hand it back. All right. So this, I've pushed it a bit further past 5 than I thought I was gonna. I think we got it. So, actually, the person who bought this watch said that if he'd bought it from Watch Club, he would not expect to have had to have done this work done to it. And I agreed with him wholeheartedly. So, Jim, I think we cracked it.
Right.
And actually, I just heard the quarter flick around as I went past 15. So let's put it on. I'll put it on just before 30,
Yeah.
and we must be now about 4 or 5 seconds off.
Yeah.
Full on 30. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was a few. So that's a few seconds early, actually. But it, you know what? It's splitting this.
Yeah.
It's just about splitting that thing in half. I mean, on 5 seconds, it was exactly on 5 minutes past.
Well, they often are immediate out, but it doesn't matter.
And also, if there's any slight eccentricity in the dial or the positioning of the dial, that would throw that off as well.
If it should be right at the hour, I always think, or right as you can get it.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't try adjusting it.
What I want to do is just bring the hands nearby each other. So just to make sure they pass. So this is just before the hour.
It should do the full month.
Yeah. Okay, and I'll let it run itself past the threshold. Oh, it's not running now. Why not? Maybe it's not wound.
We might not self-start.
Mm.
Oh, it has, yeah.
No, I had to give it a shake,
Oh, so, yeah.
but it self-started before.
Yeah, well,
Right, so we're now, I say we're very close now, and in fact, oh, okay, it's just called 1 o'clock. And how close were we? Well, yeah, we're actually on it.
Yeah.
So, interesting, and I had lots of disagreements with Martin Foster about this next point, and that is that Patek Philippe came out with a watch a few years ago where the watch knew how long it would take to strike the sequence of a minute repeat. So if you activated it at say some seconds to the hour, the watch would know, well, the whole thing is going to take me past that moment, so I'm going to correct it, and the end of the strike is going to be the right time rather than the beginning. And so Martin Foster had exactly the same reaction. He was like, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was quite fun, actually, and it was amazing technical achievement, but he thought it was...
Another bullet point in the CV.
But it's exactly what we were discovering now, because in the act of me driving the thing, it pushed itself past that moment.
Yeah, well, I would like to strike the next minute just as it changes over. It's close to
So I think now the thing is I just want to make sure the hands will clear each other. And so if there's any question that people have or any comment, now's the time to make it, because we're probably going to sign off soon.
Yeah. Going somewhere around a quarter.
Okay. And the other thing is I wanted to really thank everybody for joining us. Sunday morning, you know, it's a nice sunny day. There's a lot of things we could do, but you've got the whole rest of the day to go and enjoy the rest of the bank holiday. So I hope everyone had a nice horological morning. We're certainly having fun here at Upton Hall. We're going to have another live stream in about a month's time. We haven't quite decided the subject yet. There are so many fun and interesting things that we can explore. Just closing this watch up, and actually I was able to squeeze this with the palms of my hands. So I've just got a very clean brush here that I'm just picking up a couple of little bits of errant dust. No, I think that's on the outside. Jim, shall I put the slot in the same position or in the proper position?
Whichever you want.
I think I'll put it where it was, although I do think there's a tiny little knife mark in another position on the case. But I think it's as well to just put it where it was before, which is directly at 9 o'clock. And if the gremlins were around, that would be the moment at which I'd shatter the glass and crush the watch in between my hands, but it didn't happen. Actually, here's a nice little detail. One of the knives we had contemplated using was this beautiful handmade knife made in Sheffield by one of the tiny little workshops around Sheffield, probably, I'm guessing, in the 20s or 30s, much later.
10 years ago.
Oh, really? My goodness. Okay, so that's one of Jim Arnfield's knives. Still made by hand about 10 years ago. That's incredible. I mean, that to me, that's just quite unbelievable. I'll try and get it on. My goodness, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So it's got a beautiful horn handle. I think that looks like a bovine horn or something. Carbon steel blade. Proper Sheffield pattern there. So yeah, beautiful tools, beautiful watches. Anyway, everyone, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in about a month's time, I guess. We'll put it up on Facebook, and maybe we'll try and stream doubly to YouTube as well next time, see how it goes. Thanks for joining us. And thank Richard for being our technical man in the background, for Jim Arnfield for setting it all up, making it happen.
Just to say a couple of comments. Martin Foster says that he still stands, he's still going to keep his views on the Patek Philippe repeater. Another one saying thanks, another thank you. So thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you, everybody.
And then now.
learn clock and watchmaking at the BHI, and learn about antique tools and horology at the Museum of Timekeeping.